Oh, I'm.
We can see it, Maria.
In professional. Can you see the screen?
We can.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. Hi, my name is Marie Davidova, and I will be talking about systemic approach to architectural performance and about the hyperobjectivity within this field. Okay, this is not working, then I just scroll. I will just slightly introduce how do I work, because it's a bit untraditional. I am actually hired at this moment. I am hired full-time academician. It hasn't been always this way, but in the same time, I'm chair of an NGO called Collaborative Collective, and that NGO also has a practice network. And the work I will be presenting here today will be actually crossing those fields that have been interrelated, and many of the projects have been done through academia, integrating practice, integrating NGO, or other way around. And that all can be classified to research by design. That would be through experimental teaching or studio teaching, to put it directly. And let's get to the discussion about hyperobjectivity. I'm sure many of the people here are aware of the work of Timothy Morton, so that's his term. So I will discuss why the systemic interventions which has been done through this kind of settings are hyperobjective. This is just easy example of villa done through our practice that was also integrating students working on that, and a lot of work has been developed through non-for-profit practice. So this villa is just simple object. It's just a house, right? You would say, but in the same time, this house is operated by artificial intelligence or machine learning. That is operated by hardware that is co-designed through that villa and through that villa's performance, how you behave in that villa, how the environment around that villa and within that villa behaves. That is machine learning. It has again interconnection with the people that can co-design and redesign it. Then you integrate again machine learning, and that all develops. And then this design of the artificial intelligence called SysLoop is actually designed to be integrated in a large city system that would work with, for instance, terrorist attacks, or let's say things like COVID at the moment. So that would be different things that could interconnect those systems of those intelligence housing. This is something which is much largely not-for-profit work, and that deals with ecosystem. This is projects called Corridor, and those Corridor projects are doing very small interventions, input like insect hotel, but those insect hotels are placed on a larger network that will be on ecosystemic networks within the cities, like biocorridors or bio networks. So the species distributes across the city, and you generate biotop on this network. So then you can support the ecosystem. That would be integrated with co-design and DIY. So you extend this network to actually placing a QR code on that insect hotel to people to DIY those insect hotels and expand the network across the city. And that would be also integrated with several social events. So you generate the interest. So you generate habitable and edible, cross-species edible and habitable landscapes, and that work is generative because it can increase from one small thing, like one small little object, that is hyperobjective. So let's get to the discussion on the systemic approach to architectural performance. It is focusing on landscape, social and culture, ecology in built environment. And it is aiming in co-living performance within the city with the aim of transition towards post-Anthropocene that would hopefully target on biodiversity and climate change adaptation. It is done through architectural and urban design, whilst using holistic approach. So that would be the starting field, but that field is again hyperobjective. And that is because it is done through real life co-design laboratory. So the work is not theoretical. We do real life interventions. Like when you think of reductionist laboratory, that would be you separate everything from everything and research on one field. The real life co-design laboratory is the thing that you place the prototypes in real life environment and test them through real life and co-design them through real life and even redesign them through real life as well. So that would be an example of what this field is not about. This is from Cardiff, very close to World School of Architecture, where I am now working as a lecturer. And you have this beautiful butte park that has very large biodiversity. Then you have fence, then you have motorway, then you have a wall, and then you have human settlements. So what is systemic approach to architectural performance trying to target on is that species live together in synergy. So people live with other species and other species live with humans, and you don't have this this division like people believed that they are something different than nature. Of course, we are all biological bodies, and we are deeply systemically dependent on the rest of the ecosystem, and maybe the ecosystem is also dependent on us. We definitely have an impact on that. So systemic approach to architectural performance, it is kind of fusion of several process-based fields. I will just scroll down and then I will get deeply to them. So it is systems-oriented design, performance-oriented architecture, ecosystemic urban interventions, time-based design, non-anthropocentric ecosystemic services, co-design, and DIY. So if I get to systems-oriented design, it has been founded by Birger Sevaldsson, and he positioned the field that it is something between which very much relates to SCiO, right? This is something between systems thinking and systems practice, and something between design practice and design thinking. This is processed through action research and research by design. And somewhat he put that point that is closer to design practice. I think it's very much interchangeable within the processes, and sometimes there is more focus on one of those. However, all those fields are integrated in that, and it is of course dealing with reflections in action and field of design and systems field design.
Marie, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Stephen says he can't, your slides are frozen up now. Can I just see if anybody else is having a problem with the slides? No, it looks like it's a problem at your end, Stephen. Sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt, Marie. I think you should carry on.
Thanks.
Okay, so one of the tools of systems-oriented design is giga mapping. That is something similar to systems maps, but is designerly. What we say is very visual, and it is mixing. It is messy. We tend to be messy. I mean, we enjoy to be messy, and we work with rich pictures, collages, user journeys, scenarios, diagramming, service blueprint, information visualizations, causal loop model, mind mapping, but also you can integrate different scenario games and things like that in all those maps, and searching for relations. And the most messy you get, the best. Sometimes you need to organize later on, but we like to be messy. What I'm working with in this field with is actually working with minimaps and gigamaps. Minimap is actually a small map which every team member of co-design process has to first design their minimap, sort of map their own universe, and then they all go together to gigamapping, and they are relating their minimaps across the table into the gigamap, which also discusses empathy between the different stakeholders and part takers. So this would be like collaborative design or co-design. That would be full-scale prototype, but placed into real-life environment that would be reflected. And also what I'm showing here, this is not linear process. This operates in feedback loops. So you gigamap together, you learn new from the new people, you go back to your maps, develop your field, then relate your field with the other people, and you are full-scale prototyping together in synergy, reflecting, redesigning, and that goes on and on in an endless process. This is small example of gigamap of one of my students, that have been relating those minimaps of within our design unit, when he has been relating each minimap and interpreting this long list is interpretation of the relationship between different aspects of each team member. This is how it looks in co-design practice. This is my NGO practice project, where we would work with the community for city municipality of Prague 22, where different stakeholders map their own minimaps. And this is example how different students relate their minimaps across the table, searching for relationships. Here they are asked to develop one synergetic design. This would be when it gets to real public participation with variety of community, and people would cut those minimaps and search for the relationships. We integrate physical objects, searching relationships between tangible objects. That would be the urban interventions that would support the ecosystem in this case. And also dealing with empathy in relating, understanding, but also enacting. Not only understanding, but empathy is also about enacting. So this is designing through empathy, that is understanding and enactment. When I get to performance-oriented architecture, what I have been working with would be mainly responsiveness, and that would be my PhD in responsive wood. This is example from Norwegian wood paneling. This panel warps when there is dry and hot weather, and it gets narrow when there is low humidity and high humidity and low temperature. So this screen is airing when you want, and not airing when you don't want. And we would integrate this performance. This is a simulation. How this can work depends how the screen is open. And this would be my design prototype that is already integrating co-living with algae, so that algae sorbs the moisture. So it warps more when it's dry weather, and doesn't warp the opposite direction when it's high humidity. And that would be integrated on screens that would support the ecosystem through human buildings architecture, but also non-human. This is first application of this responsive wood concept that is on a non-human settlement. This is responsive insect hotel, And this insect hotel, actually, thanks to that this wood warps being from different part of the tree trunk, they warp different way. It supports the biodiversity because it generates different climates in different climatic chambers, which means that different species have different preferences. And then the larger diversity you generate through your design, the larger diversity of insects you get. If we get then through those ecosystemic urban interventions, that would be that insect hotel, and you see how that intervention already generates some input in the environment. You see those people already suddenly are interested in the locality. That was actually a project that was done also to generate social change, to generate a public movement about protecting this biocorridor. So we made this intervention to make them understand that they live in something precious. It is within the city center of Prague. This is iteration of the same concept that's from Cyprus, that is just by the United Nations buffer zone, and it is extending the biodiversity. It is actually beautiful biocorridor across the city, the buffer zone. It sounds very awkward that there is something positive about having a buffer zone within the city of Nicosia. Which goes through the historical center, and that part is just like bulldozed, but it is actually a great biocorridor, and we were bringing this biocorridor across the Greek and Turkish part. Those would be pavilions using this responsive wood concept, bettering urban heat islands through the hygroscopicity of wood. So those panels warp and generate airflow, circulation of humidified air, and again getting change within the city, understanding what are the ecological problems. Now, recent times people are starting realizing them. Those two projects are actually from the time people didn't understand it is too important. And this would be actually a very important part of this, generating opportunistic use. This black bird typically doesn't have where to sit in urban environment because people would put the needles on their windows and so on. So generating city furnitures for black birds would be ecosystemic interventions. So those species don't fly and die of exhaustion on their way. I will just skip through those. Those would be different interventions with blooming species for pollinators and so on. Getting to the time-based design, this is kind of what you would do before starting the projects, mapping the stakeholders. The first you have in place with who you start your partnerships, and then you make an action diagram, who acts when, and when the different actors have to act together, and what do they do and when, and give a picture what is the project. Very often it doesn't work, but at least people understand what do you expect from them. And then you are getting through those projects through building, getting public engagement. I mean, we built an insect hotel, but it is important to actually make an edible landscape for those insects. So this would be workshop with blooming species, honey blooming species. And then again, public engagement, which goes through this insect hotel, gets inhabited by algae, which again generates a more habitable and edible landscape across the species. And that leads me to service design and non-anthropocentric ecosystemic services. So that would be my colleague, landscape ecologist, doing this workshop with seed bombing of honey blooming species that would generate the service design, edible landscape, like fast food restaurants for the insect we accommodate within the hotel. And of course, this hotel, this insect hotel, is in the same time fast food restaurants for bats and birds on this biocorridor. So you interact with larger ecosystemic network, and that's why those small objects are hyperobjective. So that would be just some samples of what we mapped, what ecosystem we supported through this. And when we mapped this, we would do autumn event where we would teach kids how to mix the edible bird food for the autumn, because many people would be brainwashed and think that they could give rice to birds. Of course not. You use the species that grow on the field, because the species adapted for what you grow on the fields, and not on that. And this would be another layer. Exactly, this is where is the insect hotel, and this would be my NGO intervention, actually being like body that can actually fight with the city or with the government. We put the complaint on a city metropolitan plan of Prague, clearly showing this area needs to be kept green as well, because you have biocorridor going through here. So that would be why you need an NGO, because if it's me, Marie Davidova, complaining, nobody listens. When you have NGO body, they actually have to sort of at least give you an answer and have to deal with that. So this is just sweet example from Cardiff about those non-anthropocentric services. If you think of this restaurant for this lady, but it is also a restaurant for the bumblebee that is crossing the city. So it has more services than just one. This is how nature is crossing across the city, generating its own biocorridors. You can't fight it. And this is nice example from Aarhus. This is from historical. This is from outdoor museum actually, and this little bird is living inside of the structure of this house. And my question is, today many of the civil engineers are spending a lot of energy and lot of finances on discover how to make facades that birds don't nest in them, instead of designing for the facades which birds nest in them. And we are all happy with that, because we want actually birds nest in them. If I get to the co-design, co-creation and DIY, this would be the villa I was showing at the start. So this villa is co-designed. Also the landscape and the ecosystem co-designed the villa. The ecosystem was extended on the rooftop, and there has been the terrain defined the villa. That is actually sloping with the terrain, and it is co-designed through this water surface, which is actually critical for Prague, which suffers with droughts at this moment. So these algae are generating edible and habitable landscape with enough water for bat reservation, which is nearby. It has been co-designed with the clients and multiple experts that have been co-designing for the artificial intelligence that again takes ahead and co-designs itself based on observation of what you do. It goes from the fancy objects like a robotic piano that the sensors notice your mood and they will play what you want to listen in that mode. It of course operates the climate, the security, and then the security of the city. This is a clear example of co-design when this algae co-designs the performance of this screen, whether it's airing or not airing, and generates habitable landscape through through some sort of semi-interior spaces of the houses. This would be a tree house that stands itself, so it is not dependent on the tree in that sense that it is not hanging on it, whilst it is attached to that, so it is dancing with the wind, with the trees. It is moving, and there is a moss growing on the platform, so we are extending the habitable landscape. In the same time, it's habitable landscape for us when we come and put the fabric on the tree house. That would be only weekend, so the moss survives and it's happy when we leave. That this would be co-designed with those kids who were actually joining when we were building it. That's probably only possible in Ukraine, where this workshop happened. So we were building, and those kids were telling us where to put the lock to make it more exciting. These kids co-designed this structure with adding blooming species for the early pollinators, and for the autumn they were just interacting themselves, creating bird food the way actually they wanted. They got the workshop, but they just took their way, which was good. So what we do is we are putting the QR code on those prototypes, so people scan them and get to DIY recipes, how to reproduce those prototypes themselves. This is a parametric model, so of course based on the size of the tree you change the parameters, and then you just laser cut the model or cut it on a mill saw. This is what we do in my design unit now. I can just scroll a bit when our students are making DIY videos for their ecosystemic interventions for extending habitats. So that would be it is loading. Okay. So that's some of the interventions that are to support ecosystem. Yeah, if I just go out of that. What we are playing on now with is actually with this co-design integration, we are integrating token economy, and hopefully we will expand to blockchain soon. And it is with the discussion, I don't know if you heard of that New Zealand river that actually got a personhood. And personhood is something very different than environmental protection. Personhood is personhood. And what we play with the blockchain economy is actually we are wondering whether if a river can have personhood, whether it can also have a wallet, and whether different species can have a wallet, which means that you would pay the honeybee for the honey or for pollinating your tomato, and that the honeybee that has its wallet and collects the money can then extend the land for blooming meadows within this neighborhood. I mean, of course, you cannot make it in the system that the honeybee decides I am buying the meadow now, but you can give a wallet to the same way the Maori people are responsible for the behavior of the river that has a personhood. The same way the system can be responsible for the honeybee and say like, okay, you have to give some tokens to the honeybee if you want to get your tomato pollinated. And that means that if you collect enough money within the flying distance of the honeybee, you extend the meadow for the tokens you collect. So we are wondering how to make those non-exclusive systems that would actually integrate the overall ecosystem, not being just top-down human anthropocentric economic system, but actually redefine the system through this kind of participation or community-based participation. This is just a sample of the project where we are already integrating this token economy in the practice within that Prague 22, where I showed that co-design workshop. And then getting back to, we went through all those fields I discussed, and I will just show one of those gigamaps I did actually quite long time ago, and I just mapped several projects I worked on, and sort of was searching for feedback loops between different agency that is happening within those design projects. This would be the example. And what I came to was that what was integrating more human and non-human agency was actually like also most beneficial to humans. So what I am proposing is actually transition from discussing being human-centered. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this is like big thing in design, like human-centered design. So I think we need to move to non-anthropocentric design, and this means the transition towards post-anthropocene that would lead towards biodiversity and climate change adaptation, and that will be done through research by design. And what I work with are those ecosystemic prototypical interventions and their hyper-objective relations. And this transition towards post-anthropocene is here what has been discussed, done through cross-species co-living by generating dwelling and edible landscape, combining analog and digital, therefore biodigital co-design for adaptation, and multi-agency interaction and co-design process of the performance. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Jan Gehl. Jan Gehl is a very famous urban designer or urbanist that has discussed cities for people, and it was great. However, I think we should now transit from that stage towards the participation of both biotic and abiotic agency to one co-performative ecosystem that would be done through real-life co-design laboratory. And those hyper-objective media and agency are building the ground for the field that I discussed, which is systemic approach to architectural performance. So thank you. If you are interested in publications in the field, you can follow me on ResearchGate. All my publications are open access. So scan the QR code and please catch up. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Marie, for a fascinating walkthrough in your practice. We have a couple of questions, and probably from a time perspective, we'll take those questions now and then do a time check before we move to Malcolm's presentation, if that's okay.
Yeah, fine.
Mm-hmm.
First one is from Jan. Jan, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. I was wondering how you ensure the quality of the use of those different methodologies that you're introducing and combining. How do you ensure that there is a certain consistency in use of methodologies?
How do you ensure? Well, that is, I mean, like dancing with the systems, modeling through. I would say you never ensure anything. You do your best. I mean, how do you ensure? I mean, I don't think this field relates to any control. And this, I think if you deal with co-design, co-design is perfectly not about control. It is actually, I read very beautiful paper now by Harold Nelson, who was just discussing, and it was actually sort of some sort of in relation to Bela Banasi. He was discussing that the true leadership should be participatory, not trying to control, because if you are trying to control, everything runs out of control. So if you integrate, I don't think you can ensure. No, it's
perhaps let me explain it a bit better. I'm working in architecture too, and I work with different stakeholder groups in redesigning old industrial sites. We always do that with quite a large group of facilitators and consultants, and we have seen that if we use the same methodologies in a too diverse way, the kind of outcomes that you get from the different groups have a huge diversity, and the models that you're building are simply not fit to the situation anymore, because different consultants make different interpretations of what is brought forward and interact in quite different and diverse ways with stakeholders. So you get what you get is a mess, yes, but you need to then reinterpret everything afterwards, which is not participation anymore.
It is in a way true. So that's what we are discussing, designer as a facilitator, or a role of the facilitator. So you facilitate the co-design workshop. You need to work. You search between synergy people. Like what I do through those giga mapping workshops is like asking people to interpret the relationships. So they first map their own universe. They start to understand actually what they want, which is very important. First, before you start relating with other people, you need to understand what you want yourself. Then they start relating what they want, what would be the relationships between each other. And then I ask them, every arrow they draw, they have to write an interpretation, and very often they have to draw a scenario. What if, and also like catastrophic scenario, or what if everything goes perfect? What if everything goes completely wrong? And things might happen either or somewhere in between, but they start understanding and interpreting, and maybe also giving up on certain ideas.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jan. Patrick, you had a question on GigaMap.
Yes. Hi, Marie. It's Patrick Highland here. Thanks. I very much enjoyed your presentation. Marie, I'm quite keen on learning about new methods for thinking systemically. So I'm quite keen on this GigaMap method, which I wasn't familiar with. And I've just been listening to you talk to the previous speaker about how you use it in your workshops. It seems to me to be a technique to be able to examine multiple different perspectives in order to arrive at a design. I just wanted to know if there's any similarity with that with Peter Checklin's soft systems rich.
Yes, it is. Yes. I mean, we typically GigaMapping works with soft systems methodology. And what we have been also working a lot with is actually relating soft and hard data. And also being designer, you also often have to develop intuition and tacit knowledge. So actually relating hard and soft data, and working working within those fields, you sort of generate that intuition of understanding, and also relating between different stakeholders, you generate intuition and things like that.
Sure. Just briefly, I just wanted to follow on to that with, you know, soft systems. What I find is that out of those perspectives will emerge some different strong opinions as to what, in your case, I guess it needs to be designed and for what purpose. How do you juxtapose those different perspectives amongst the stakeholder group and actually manage those perspectives so that the individuals can, I guess, accommodate each other in the SSM sense, or get to some sort of agreement that this is now what they want to design when you have radically different views with that GigaMap method?
That is quite happening, and is not always successful. I will not make you happy. Is not 100% successful. We try our best. That's the only thing what you can do. But the thing we are actually using as the design tool is empathy. We just had a session. You can find it on my YouTube channel. We had a session for London Festival of Architecture with our World School of Architecture Masters of Architecture Design program that has been dedicated to empathy. And what is this relating across the giga mapping? And first of all, you map your own universe. With mapping your own universe, you also start understanding that other people have their own universes, because you present, everybody around the table presents their universes, and because you have your own, you start to understand others have. And trying to find the relationships, when you are asked to find the relationships, you are searching for synergy. I mean, you will never find no perfect solution exists, right, or anything like that. But you can find synergetic solutions, going through different relationships. And I mean, if there are people who really hate each other, and often those come, I must say humor is a very good tool. You know, it's just like people are really at the table, and some of them really hate each other, and you just make a little joke about it. It's like, yes, I know you hate me, and it's okay. Let's you know. So humor is actually very good tool to open mind, and people start opening their empathy through actually making little jokes about it. Yes, it is a difficult situation, and nobody is happy at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that question, Patrick. Just in the interest of time, if it's okay with everyone, we'll move on to Malcolm's presentation and then come back to sort of an open Q&A with both speakers towards the end. That's okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.